For over 30 years, Situation Management Systems has trained the Positive Power and Influence program to people all over the world in an effort to empower themselves with the knowledge and tools they need to deal with difficult situations at work, at home, and everywhere in between. Our CEO and host, Sherri has been training people about positive power and influence all around the world for most of her professional career, and recently got her PhD in Human Development within the School of Leadership at Fielding University. Her co-host, Rhonda Selvale, has been with the company for more than 10 years now, and is not only a client services consultant, but a trainer of the program who has directed various learning initiatives for some of our most important clients.
Well, I'm Sherri.
And I'm Rhonda.
And we are here to introduce you to Situation Management Systems and our flagship program, the Positive Power and Influence program. So, Rhonda, why don't you just tell me a little bit about what was your first reaction the very first time you went through the Positive Power and Influence program?
I have to learn how to deliver and train this program. I had never seen anything that made you pretty much hold yourself responsible for your emotions and how you approach each situation, and to look at it and plan it and remove, anticipate the objections. It was just so different from anything else that I had experienced before, that I knew it was something I wanted to be able to add to my repertoire and to really just become a full-fledged part of this company by learning how to deliver that program.
Yeah. I was in my 30s. I think 30, maybe 31, 32, when I participated in the program, and I actually participated in Europe. It was an in-house program. I think it was at Rank Xerox, if I remember right. And it was a big group. There were tons of people. And oh my goodness, asserting. I had never, ever thought about being direct and clear. Of course, I've never looked back since then. I have no problems with being direct and clear now. But oh my goodness, I never thought about the fact that I couldn't say I want. And I felt awkward saying I want or I need. So it's a very powerful program, and it changes people's lives. But so the company, Situation Management Systems, was first formed by David Berlew and Roger Harrison, and also Earl Rose. And Earl Rose was responsible for the whole trainer certification process. And David Berlew and Roger Harrison created the program. We've got some interesting video of Roger Harrison talking about that. We'll have to share that at some point, so people can see how he thought about the program and how he created it working with David. The three of them, and I think it was mostly David Berlew and Roger Harrison. David Berlew and Earl Rose started SMS. In fact, Earl talks about it being started on his kitchen table. And so they put together the company. And in the beginning, when they were training the program, they would just walk around with boxes. That was their materials. They didn't have books. They didn't have assessments. They didn't have any of that put together. And the original terms in the program were interesting as well, because asserting was called rewards and punishment. And you got to remember, this is back in the late 60s, early 70s. So using authority as a way to get things done was still very strong, even though the whole point of the program was, how do we get people to get their personal power going, and how do we get them to understand how this works?
Influence without authority.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Back in those days, it was becoming more popular to have matrix organizations and teams and cross-functional teams and the whole thing. That was at the very beginning of all of those, playing with the traditional top-down structure. So it was right at the start of that. And right in those heady days of the 60s and 70s, all kinds of stuff was going on in this country.
Really?
But it wasn't just here. Roger was actually living in Europe at the time, and I think the first program, if I remember correctly, the first program was delivered with the Irish Institute of Management.
Wow, what an interesting time to be delivering in that part of the world.
Oh, Absolutely. There was so much going on politically, sociopolitically, between Ireland and the UK or England. It's quite the time. So that's where the first programs, and I do think that Rank Xerox was one of the first companies to really embrace the program. And that was many years ago. That was, I mean, we're talking 45, 50 years ago, right? It's almost 2020.
Yeah. It's exciting to be able to talk about something that's been around that long as well. It stood the test of time.
Well, when they originally developed it, they thought it had a 10-year shelf life.
Right.
They didn't think it was going to go beyond 10 years. Which is an interesting thing when you think about it. Because here we are 50 years later, and it's still relevant. In fact, people are talking more about influence now than they were back then. One of the interesting things as part of the history is it's called Positive Power and Influence Program. And so many companies, again, back in those days, did not want the word power used. So we had to change the title for some organizations because power was a dirty word.
I like the power. I like being able to express, things with my own power. Bring that presence to any situation, positively, of course.
Well, yeah. So back in those days, what we had to do, even when we could use the word power, was we started off the program by having people tell us what the word power meant to them, and we'd make this whole list of, answers on a flip chart of what everybody thought power was. And there would be positive things and there would be negative things. And there was a lot of negative stuff. I mean, we're talking over here, the Vietnam War and a bunch of stuff that was going on. So people had very negative feelings about power. I think we're coming full circle. We might be there again now. But, and so we would say to people, look, power is neutral. Influence is neutral. It's how you use your power and how you use your influence that determines whether you have a positive or a negative impact. And we don't need to do that anymore. Everybody seems a little bit more aware these days about power and, the neutral sense of it. But that happened for quite a while back then.
It's interesting to see how business has changed. I mean, we deal with more people, I think, that need to learn how to influence laterally or upward, and that's their challenge. And they're used of not. Then they're used of not relying on their power because they don't have anything related to their position when influencing in those ways. And it really helps to develop them to realize they can absolutely influence at all levels of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, it is a thing that people have about influencing upwardly. They don't believe they can, or they believe they have to be very careful about it. And it is fascinating to watch people as they start to embrace the situational influence model and understand how to use it. And then they realize, well, wait a minute, I can influence upwardly. And the biggest thing with people is to get them to actually use asserting with their boss. I mean, that tends to be, the big thing for a lot of people is, I can't assert with my boss. I'm like, really? Why not?
And it's interesting in my experience, even when I was in management, I wanted my employees to tell me what they wanted and what they needed from me. If they could come to me with a clear description of what it was I could do, it made my job easier because I knew what they needed.
Yeah, it is. I feel the same way. I want people to be clear. I want them to tell me what they want and what they'll do for me.
Exactly.
I like that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our good old Z model. If you do this, I will do this. I like that. So, here we are almost into 2020. And it's probably, I'm pretty sure that Berlew and Harrison were working on this in the late 60s, early 70s. So we're basically looking at 50 years.
Amazing.
And here we are, 50 years later. And the program's been translated into at least 15 languages. We do it in all forms. We do it face-to-face. The 3-day face-to-face with a small group is a powerful personal development program. It really is a very good tool for people. And then we do purely virtual programs. We do blended programs. And I think within the next month, we will have a full e-learning program that will be up and running. So people can do it in any format they want, in any combination of formats that they want.
It's great because it allows people to, people learn differently. And some people are really in charge of their learning, and other people want it to be directed for them, either by the organization or even by an outside entity like ourselves. So it's wonderful to see that variety, because I think it's really important that you embrace all different levels of learning.
Yeah, we get all types in the program, don't we?
We do. But you mentioned the 3-day program, and there really is something about that 3-day program that is so unique, because you get such you get a lot of individual attention, and you really get to work through learning how to perform with the styles, and then really practicing a challenging conversation. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. You see people leaving here with with hope. And my quote is, that light at the end of the tunnel is no longer an oncoming train, because they really feel that they have the skills now to go and practice and get something that they really need. It's really exciting.
Yeah, we do. It was so funny because at the last program, we had so many people cancel out that we only had 2 people in the program. And one of the folks said to me that they were actually glad people had canceled out, because they got so much attention and so much coaching. They felt like, they were lucky. And I was a little bit unsure how it was going to work with just 2 people, but it actually worked out quite well. And it was kind of fun because I stepped in and did one of the recorded exercises with them. So I got to see myself, which I haven't done in a long time, and I got to analyze myself, and I kept track of my use of the influence styles. I did all of that. And one of the things that I found out was I put my hand over my mouth when I talk, and I'm like, why am I doing that?
Amazing. It's amazing the things you see on video. I remember when I first took the program here, I never thought that I had a very strong push. And then when I watched myself on video, I was like, wow. I mean, talk about a dog with a bone. I wouldn't let go. And I never realized that about myself. So the video exercises are really helpful for some self-development, because you don't realize how you perform in a group when it's something that you're fighting for.
Yeah, it's that feedback that people love to hate or hate to love or whatever it is, because they get to see themselves. But there's nothing like watching yourself and seeing your body language and listening to the words that you choose and the tone of voice. I mean, I had a ball doing that exercise. I really had fun with it. But again, you always learn when you can sit back and watch yourself and watch how you're doing. You always learn something. And you can't ever stop learning about this stuff, because, the big thing about influence is understanding the impact that you're having on other people. It's not getting your way. Everybody thinks it's getting your way. But it really is understanding what's the impact that I have, how do I get what I want, but how do I also take care of the relationship? And if I'm taking care of the relationship, it means I got to give you something of what you want as well.
I think that's one of the beauty of our assessment tools as well, is that people get a vision, either through graphing or studying of data points on their impact versus their intent, which is such powerful knowledge, because we don't know unless we have a vehicle for people to give us the feedback that we need to improve.
And the ISQ, the Influence Style Questionnaire, that is an incredible tool. And I think that when people really jump in and look at the data, they really do learn a lot. It's exactly what you're saying. That intent versus impact is powerful, especially in the difficult relationships.
Yep.
We want people to do difficult relationships. But I think one of the challenging parts for some people is finding out it's non-anonymous. You're going to know who said things about you.
Yeah. you need to. I mean, it's all about your relationship with these individuals. So that is so important in adding the value of the information that you're getting. And it's interesting to see individuals realize, like, I know why this isn't working. I'm treating people I work well with the same way as I'm treating people I don't work well with. I'm not getting out of my own way. I'm not changing how I approach things. And that's what I have to do to be successful.
Well, it's like I say to people a lot of times is if if you want somebody else to change, you have to change first.
Yeah.
It's that simple. We get into dances with each other in terms of how we interact, the things we say, especially we get very habitual with the people that are, in our lives on a daily basis. We dance the same dance. So if you want to break that dance, you can't wait for your partner to do that. If you want something different, you got to shift. And a lot of times, especially in those strong personal relationships, you got to do some pretty serious internal shifting in order to be able to do that. You've got to let go of stuff. You've got to let go of beliefs or desires or what you think the other person should be and all that kind of stuff. Focus on yourself. Be accepting.
It is, I found the process that we use, the circular process, to be incredibly helpful. Because when you start looking at something that's part of what you believe, and figuring out, how can I let that go? And to have a process to walk through that, and it makes sense because you're writing it down and you're really thinking about it. So you're adding a number of elements to it till you get to where you need to be. And it's very, very powerful to have a tool like that to get yourself again clear and grounded on what is holding me back with this individual or with this particular piece of information. It's incredibly helpful.
The negative circular processes on one level are a very simple tool, but on another level, if you do it seriously and you really, take a look at that negative circular process and then move it to a positive one, it can make some big shifts for people. So they start thinking about it. It brings a lot of unconscious stuff to the surface. And that's what we do. We're making people conscious. We're getting people to make choices about being positively powerful in situations. We really are inspiring them to be the best of who they can be and take responsibility for their own reactions in situations.
That's a very big part of it. I'd mentioned in challenging situations, a lawyer friend of mine once said, "Whoever raises their voice first loses." And there's such validity to that when the emotions start to get in the way, you need to figure out a way to leave that situation with strength and purpose, but committing to get back to it. You've got to recognize that you've lost. So back up and let's do this again some other time. Let's open your calendar.
The good old disengaging.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting after all these years. I mean, I think it was when was it? 84 or 85 when I attended the Positive Power and Influence program for the first time. Then I became a trainer, and then I became a certifying trainer. And then I call them the 50s guys, they retired, although Roger passed away several years ago. David is in his 80s and living up in New Hampshire, and Earl is retired and living down in the Southwest. So, we've got a transition of people, and but we've kept true to the original program. We've kept true to it. Although we've definitely updated it based on behavioral research. We've got ties to Harvard. We've got ties to researchers. I myself just finished doing a PhD in human development. So, we are constantly keeping ourselves grounded in the science, in the behavioral science of what it means to influence. This wasn't just invented out of the blue. David Ballou was a serious researcher, as was Roger Harrison. So all of this is scientifically based. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so successful is because in some ways it's got that elegance of being a very simple model, yet able to handle incredibly complex situations.
Yeah, and I mean, we've heard people say it in the program, and I've said it myself. I wish I had been exposed to this content when I was, just getting out into the business world, because I can look at situations that I would have handled very, very differently. And I think avoiding that bloody forehead syndrome of trying things the same way and not expecting different results. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Thinking.
Something like that. I think you got it.
But it's, it's really, really helpful to be able to have a very simple model where with practice and developing neutrality, you can discover there are ways to manage your energy in any situation, as long as you plan effectively and know what it is you really want, know what the person across the table really wants. You've got to think about them too. And to really just increase your success at influencing. And it's a life skill. You don't just influence at work, you influence everywhere. Everywhere.
I wish I had, let's see, maybe $1 for every time somebody said to me, I thought that situation was going to be so difficult, and I actually had the conversation in 5 minutes and it was really easy. And it's like, well, that's what happens when you put in the time to think it through, plan it, have the right tools, figure it out, practice it, and then go do it. And, 75% of the people in the programs are successful with their critical influence situation. We have them pick a situation that is important to them, that's coming up in the next month, that they need to think through, plan, and practice at the program, and then they carry it out. 3/4 of those people have success or ongoing success like a month later. I mean, it's powerful.
Yeah, we had a wonderful call about a month ago with a group of the special session, the 3-day session that we hold here in Milford. And they all shared these wonderful success stories. And it was a similar situation where they didn't realize how simple it was going to be. And so much that we were able to spend some time with them working on their next round of situations. And it was joyful. It was a joyful experience. And they really understood how powerful what it is we do and are looking forward to bringing it into their organizations.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like something that works.
Right. Exactly.
Especially when it comes to relationships and people. And, we have so many scientists, engineers, technical people that, rely so much on data and don't know what to do when the data doesn't work. And everybody's got so much data these days that you get into data wars. Here's my data, I'm going to throw it at you. You throw your data at me, and we never agree. So it's a powerful thing. I mean, I just had somebody, can't remember what program it was. I just had was he software engineer? And he was like, I never knew there was a way to talk to people that was, that there's influence styles, that there's a way of doing this. He said, I never heard of this before, ever in my life. This is going to be so powerful for me.
Yeah, it is. It's a unique program. It really is. It gives you it gives you tools in your toolbox and I always like to say to get out of your own way. Take a step back, plan that conversation, think about the conditions, and you go in with such confidence that you're increasing your success ratio just by being confident in the information that you're presenting. And you've thought about it, and you've removed that fear, so you can go in and get what you want.
Actually, I think one of the things, the research that we did said that people take more risks, are more successful, and are better able to manage themselves in difficult situations. And the interesting thing is the model applies all over the world. I mean, I mentioned earlier that, it's been translated into at least 15 languages. The influence styles work everywhere. And, the cultural differences, obviously there are cultural differences. But the styles work in every culture. They're just used differently. Maybe there's a different flow to the conversation. Maybe for some cultures, you have to spend more time taking care of relationships. We had Juan with us last week from Mexico, and he was saying that in Mexico, you have to go in and say hello to everybody. You spend the first half hour, whatever, of your day just going around and hugging and kissing everybody hello. And so there's, it's different in different cultures in terms of the flow of the conversation and how things are done. So, but the influence styles work equally well everywhere. And it's doing really well in China, all over Europe. It's in parts of Africa, and, Southeast Asia. There's a ton of places where influence is just being trained. Our program is being delivered by local people, which makes a huge difference. Because my thing is always, you don't know the culture if you can't speak the language. Right. So it's better to have local people delivering this type of stuff.
And the translations are critical as well.
Yeah, some
because
places you can't get the translations right.
Right.
France, Germany. You'll never get all of France to agree or all of Germany to agree that this translation is good, but sorry, we do our best. And then, of course, we've got several different types of Spanish.
And Portuguese.
Yeah, we do. We do. And Chinese and Japanese and
those dialects.
Yeah. Does vary from country to country. So, well, I think that's a good introduction to situation management systems. Again, I'm Sherri Maloof. I'm the president of Situation Management Systems, and my cohort here is Rhonda Salvai. And come find us on Facebook and Twitter and wherever else you may discover us.
See you out there.